suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the Bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed. Tadyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisattva. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as we are taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering of the world visit God's humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. We generate bodhicitta. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, we'll recite a rosary of Om Mani Padme Hum and use this, what we've just read, these 3 verses, and consider them as you recite Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum is the mantra of compassion. You work at cultivating compassion, the wish to remove the suffering of others, and think about, with the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. And think about the vow of bodhicitta that you take in the next verse. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. That's generating bodhicitta, generating the vow to work towards the attainment of enlightenment in order to benefit all beings. And then you end with, as long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world, so that once you have generated bodhicitta, you then commit to remaining and continuing to help. It's not that you seek freedom from your own suffering, from cyclic existence, and you indulge in that, the bliss of nirvana. No, you commit to working towards helping all sentient beings. That's the commitment that we are making in the recitation of these. That's the commitment that we are meant to be cultivating within ourselves through our practice. So think about that as you recite Om Mani Padme Hum, one rosary. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. So, thinking about these three verses is really important. They contain the whole of our practice. In this first verse, we think about as what determines that someone is a Buddhist is that they go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Now, going for refuge is an interesting concept. You go for refuge only once you have recognized that you need refuge from something. And the something that you need refuge from is your state of suffering. And so recognizing that that our situation is a difficult one, recognizing the all-pervasive suffering that we possess, that we are immersed in, is a prerequisite to seeking refuge. And it is only once we recognize that we will have the kind of compassion towards others who are in that state that becomes the basis for wishing to attain enlightenment in order to help others. And then, of course, it is only out of a recognition of the state of suffering that sentient beings continue to be in that we make the commitment to remain until all sentient beings have attained freedom from suffering. So this refuge and this recognition of the state of suffering we're in is vital. And we can think this is sort of not very attractive, not very nice. But when the Buddha, I should start by saying today we are celebrating the 15th day in the lunar calendar of the month of Sakadawa, which is the month within which the Buddha was born, attained enlightenment, and passed away. So these three things happened, it is said, today on the 15th day of the lunar month. So the Buddha, upon being born, as we know, was born to a princely family, and his father, some astrologer had figured out that this young child was likely to become a holy person, and the father didn't want him to become a holy person. The father wanted him to lead the kingdom that the father was the leader of, and so he kept the child from having any awareness of any kind of unpleasantness that might lead him in a spiritual direction. And however, the child, as a young prince, went out of the palace gates and saw, first of all, someone who was old, and he had never seen an old person. And then he saw someone who was sick, and he had never seen a sick person. And then he saw a corpse being carried, and he'd never seen a corpse being carried. And he thought, gosh, if we get old, and if we get sick, and if we die, what's the point of engaging in worldly activities? We should work towards finding freedom from these. And he saw a monk, a renunciate, walking along, and thought, that's what we should be doing. So he left his palace and pursued enlightenment, freedom from suffering, and eventually, after years of practicing austerities, he realized that the austere way was not the point. He had to seek a wisdom that transcended these sort of physical tests that he was putting himself through. And he sat under the Bodhi tree and attained enlightenment. So from birth to the attainment of enlightenment, and upon attaining enlightenment, he realized that there was no one ready to receive with whom he could share the wisdom that he had come to realize, and he made his way to Varanasi, and there found his fellow ascetics who were very disappointed in the fact that he had left the ascetic way, but recognized this glow of enlightenment that he was emitting, and requested that he share what he had learned. And what did he teach? He taught the truth of suffering. In the first thing that the Buddha taught is that life is suffering. And we live the whole of our way of life as we pursue what we could call escapes from the reality of suffering. I think life is nothing but a series of ways by which we try to make more attractive the state of suffering that we're in. And while what he is teaching is, no, we have to acknowledge it. That acknowledgement itself will lead us to recognizing that suffering is caused, and that as it is caused, if we remove the causes of suffering, they will cease. The suffering will cease. And so the whole of the Buddhist path is one of learning to remove the causes of suffering and bring about the cessation of suffering. So I say this in respect to these verses, which as I say, are contain the whole of the Buddhist path. So the wish to free beings is the wish to free them from their state of suffering, and we do so by going for refuge from that suffering to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We then determine to work towards attaining a freedom from suffering and from the ignorance that is the essence of that suffering, and that's what and in order to help others out of their state of suffering. And then the last verse, we are committing ourselves to remain devoted to helping sentient beings until there are no sentient beings at all. So I went through all of that, given that today is the 15th day of Sakadawa, and to remember the essence of the Buddhist path on this day, and to commit ourselves to going for refuge, generating bodhicitta, and then committing ourselves to helping others until there are no suffering beings at all, is important. It's on this day, it's particularly special for us to think about that. It today generates a little bit of that that spirit, that quality of determination to actually engage in these three things. Okay, so last week we actually completed Beyond Religion, Ethics for a Whole World, this extraordinary book that we've been going through really page by page together. And I thought that we would go through the afterword, which is on page 185. Sorry?
I left my book home. It's all right, I'll hear it. You'll read it.
So, in this book, I have attempted to outline what I consider to be the key elements of a purely secular approach to ethics and to promoting basic human values. It is a project that I have committed to since I came to see that no one religion can ever hope to satisfy everyone. There are just too many differing mental dispositions among the 7 billion inhabitants of our planet for that to be the case. So I think this is rather extraordinary that the Dalai Lama has said, I've looked around, there doesn't seem to be one religion that fits all, so here is an attempt to distill the essence of what a spiritual practice would be, and to have it and to present it free of any of the dogmas, free of any of the let's say religious elements that might not be acceptable to one group or another. Here is the actual practice, and that's what we've been discussing. As I say, I think it's quite extraordinary that this being in the 21st century, 20th and 21st century, took on this task and presented it. And that's what this book is. My motivation in understanding this work reflects my firm belief that when each of us learns to appreciate the critical importance of ethics and makes inner values like compassion and patience an integral part of our basic outlook on life, the effects will be far-reaching. So, what are ethics?
Values. Good values.
And what do you mean by good values?
With respect, treating others as you would have them treat yourself.
Behavior guidelines,
Behavior guidelines.
both mental and physical.
So, do we find that there are differences in the ethics that we find in different philosophies or different religions or different, or yes?
Yeah.
Such as?
Well, there's differences. I mean, like, you know the quote, like, the good of the scorpion is not the good of the frog. Something like that, you know?
Well, no, I don't.
I don't even know either.
There's some sacrifices, things like that are ethical in some religions. Life sacrifice, they're not ethical across the board. They're not naturally. He makes a distinction between things that are just propositions of religion. They're naturally wrong things. Killing is wrong naturally, stealing, etc. That's where some differences are.
Yes, but I don't think that one would put those
Put that in
sacrificial practices within the domain or the realm of ethics, would one?
I don't know. If you don't do this, then you're unethical in certain religions.
Isn't it a collective conduct, a way of being coexisting so that we could all move together?
Yes. The word.
Collectively, moving forward versus backwards together, coexisting.
So you're saying that ethics depends on others to have it be a system that...
Yes?
It's more about the value, I think, value placed upon it.
by a community,
By the status quo.
so the community, okay? So you can have different communities, different status quos.
Mm-hmm.
By harming I guess the commonality is not harm, right?
KHENSUR.
To some extent or other, of course. Some religions prescribe going into the other village and taking.
Yes.
But again, I don't think that's an ethical quality of that religion. That would be more,
You're not classifying that as ethics. That's
Yeah.
what
But would like the ritual.
prescribed behavior is.
Yeah, would the rituals or behaviors of a religion.
Right.
Be like a reflection of that religion's ethics?
would the what's of that
Would the
religion?
rituals or the behaviors of that
No, I think that the
be-
religion, the rituals, I don't know, I'm suggesting that the rituals are not part of the ethical aspect of the religion. The rituals are the ritualistic aspects.
The ethics would be all personal, wouldn't they?
Would
The
be,
ethics would be all personal, the individual.
see, if we're sort of suggesting that the ethical, I think what Sham suggested, that if they're not personal, if there is, not harming others and working at helping them, that becomes not personal, that becomes universal, yeah?
Do the ethics become part, or do the ethics come from, let's say, the group, or do they come from the individual?
So
In other words, the group
that's,
would be the religion or the following or the belief group
So-
made up of individuals.
this is, we're gonna discuss this, but the whole notion that ethics, so ethics has to work within the group,
Mhm.
but it depends on the individual's behavior. We are each responsible for our ethical,
That's
Behavior.
upholding our ethics.
yeah. And that's what makes,
And that's what the group draws from.
And are ethics like a byproduct of us understanding our own suffering?
okay, well, are ethics a byproduct of us understanding or recognizing our state of suffering?
Definitely affects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Oh, boy, my hearing aids went out, so I don't really have this discussion. But I think ethics are principles, guidelines for living, and they can change from religious group, societal group, but at baseline, there can be very basic ethics. And I would like to add something on what you said at the beginning, which was, when I first heard His Holiness talking about secular ethics, that really impressed me. I have never heard a religious leader talk about secular ethics. It's always, my way or the highway, more or less, to be glib about it. And I think it gives much more weight to his teachings that he does do that. And so what do I think? I think in some societies, things that are considered ethical would be absolutely verboten in other societies. and
Multiple
that's-
wives in one society.
Pardon me?
Islam, multiple wives. Catholicism, one wife, for instance. The
Well, I
marriage.
was thinking actually
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
but and yet, and the food strictures and all that, you can take it different ways.
That's another one. yeah.
But are those ethics?
Are those
That's-
ethics or not? That's what we have to define ethics, in other words.
Yeah, but it's societal.
So,
Maybe justice, the word justice, what we think is just.
So even just can be subjective.
yeah, it's different in
The whole,
Texas.
I think that one seeks to find an objective quality in ethical behavior.
Having consciousness of how our actions affect others, to be conscious of how this is going to affect others, not just ourselves, to think of others. And that motivates a positive ethic, contribution.
Mhm.
I think that's important.
But
Contribution. when you're guided by being conscious.
So it's, the awareness is towards the other.
You're looking for something universal, in other words.
Mhm.
Refraining from the 10 non-virtues. Very similar to the 10 Commandments. I mean,
Well, that's right.
I think ethics is, what His Holiness is trying to point out, is that it's almost common sense. Don't kill other people, don't steal, don't lie, and I think most religions would share those things. I think that's His Holiness's point.
So it has an objective validity. It's not.
I think in the sense that we wouldn't want other people to do that to us.
It's true, and there's a lack of righteousness in it.
You mean by right, you mean like, no, I know what you mean. Hypocrisy, yeah.
So I'll go on with, as I hope I have shown, at the level of the individual, doing so will help bring about greater happiness and provide a real sense of purpose and meaning in our lives. And at the level of society, as more and more of us do the same, there is a real chance that we will move decisively in the direction of a culture that is less materialistically focused and instead pays closer attention to our inner spiritual resources. The benefits of doing so will be shared by all.
If I heard it correctly, doesn't that just point to the intrinsic goodness in everybody? That solid core that actually does know right and wrong, if you listen?
So, all right, I'm going to take the idea of intrinsic good. How do you feel about intrinsic
You can't
good?
use that, intrinsic's a bad word around here.
We're afraid of. So the whole idea
Everything's
is that,
relational.
the whole idea is that nothing is intrinsic. Everything depends on causes and conditions and
Oh, I know
things.
where you're coming from.
The monastery.
Absolutely.
We have Buddha
Pramana.
nature.
Thank
We
you,
have Buddha
Renee.
nature.
Appreciate it.
All sentient beings have
Thank
Buddha
you.
nature.
And yeah,
Is that not an inherent quality of sentient beings?
if that were an inherent quality of sentient beings, then emptiness would inherently exist.
Hmm.
But all sentient beings are empty of inherent existence.
Yeah, but that's not inherently true.
Okay.
That's why this word
Yeah.
intrinsic or inherent,
Intrinsic's a nasty
we're afraid
word. Wash your
of.
mouth out with soap. Unclean, yes, unclean.
Buddha nature is simply the lack of inherent existence of the sentient being that enables the sentient being to develop qualities, but it doesn't mean that they possess those qualities.
So all sentient beings have the ability,
Causality.
they all have the ability or the potential to attain Buddhahood, but they don't have an inherent Buddhahood quality.
He might take issue. He might not agree with what you just said.
I wouldn't assert that all beings are Buddhas.
But they have the
She said
potential.
potential, she
They
didn't
have the
say any.
potential,
Definitely, I
Yeah.
would agree with that.
but they don't have this inherent Buddha quality.
I think if they're a sentient being, they are empty of inherent existence,
So is everything.
necessarily.
So do they have an inherent Buddha quality?
Have they
No,
realized,
right?
have they realized they have that?
We don't need to use the word inherent. If they're a sentient being, they're empty of inherent existence.
Well, that is there. So, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of the debate.
Where's that revolving, that swivel chair?
So, I'm often asked whether I'm optimistic for the future of humanity. My simple answer is yes. In the early years of the 20th century, for example, it was widely believed that the solution to any serious conflict would have to come through the use of force. Happily, this view is no longer widespread. Today, people everywhere are fed up with war and genuinely wish to seek non-violent ways to resolve differences. Similarly, until quite recently, science and spirituality were widely considered to be incompatible. Yet today, as advances in science penetrate ever more deeply into the nature of reality, there's growing recognition that these two domains of human endeavor can and in fact do complement one another. So let's discuss how science and spirituality complement one another.
Because it's all based on causes and conditions that create the sciences.
And God?
Who's God?
The creator of everything.
Creator.
That's monotheism.
Ooh.
Well, we
That's
can
not
have-
what we're studying.
We can have two gods.
We can have 100 gods. Look at
I guess both are trying to increase human well-being. In some way.
Both are trying to increase human well-being. Science and...
Yes.
Mhm.
Excuse me. I believe, or, physics. If you look at physics, it's very much an explanation of these energies there's step-by-step correlations with religious principles, Buddhist principles. I mean, I don't articulate it well, but boy, I've certainly, when you hear Brian Greene do those amazing specials on PBS on physics, a lot of the principles to me sound, straight up Buddhism, straight up religion. I know a lot of it's theoretical, but a lot of it isn't. And the energy and physics, I used to be able to recite that, for each and every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Right.
Einstein, that's karma. For, there's Heisenberg's principle. I'm sure somebody's educated a lot better than I am and remembers these things, but to me, they deeply resonate religious principles, particularly Buddhist principles. And nothing ever ends, it just takes different forms. That's all physics. And where did I learn it? But physics is everywhere, and I think there's a lot of parallels. And I'm sure there's people educated in physics who could speak to that much better than I.
Where's Eugene?
And
There's different physics, the quantum physics or the old mechanical. Until now, most of science was dealing with what's observable by the senses. Slowly now, it's like crawling in the back door of what's going on with consciousness. It doesn't weigh anything, it has no electric charge and no color, but yet it's running the show, what's going on. So a lot of scientists are now looking at that. Then,
that's also where there's so
Oh,
many
boy.
scientists in Buddhism.
our boy Wallace, for instance, is big on that.
Pardon me?
Alan Wallace is big
Oh,
on
Alan
that.
Wallace, definitely.
Forever.
Yeah.
He gets a little pulpity sometimes, but the only way he said to study consciousness is not with microscopes but the mind itself. And it should have protocols like regular science has, how we watch the mind. That's his banner that he's, I don't understand it totally and I'm not convinced yet, but that seems to be the current thing these days. If there's anything.
Yeah, and there was that
I'm not the
physicist
correct-
Daniel Bohm, the physicist.
Bohm, yes,
Bohm.
Bohm, the guy from Italy, Rovello, Carlo Rovelli, is one. They're dealing with that. You know, the monk that deals with it is Namdak, your friend Namdak. Because he was a scientist before he became a monk.
Right.
He's big on it, but it goes over my head when he explains it.
And personally, I really enjoy, excuse me, I hope I'm not hijacking this, but personally, I really enjoy, if anybody is interested in this, watching the Dalai Lama, the mind-life discussions
yeah,
he's had over
wonderful.
the years. Absolutely. It's so fun to
The
see
best.
His Holiness blow major, scientists, physicists, all different kinds of doctors. You can just see them going, and His Holiness totally gets it.
What
and
Wallace
it's-
says, a story that one fellow says, we don't know why, one scientist talked, there was only, this thing appears, and we don't know why, there seems to be no reason why, there's no cause at all. He said it has to be a cause, because if there's no cause, it will never be there or always be there. So that's a big principle. So if something is intermittent, there's a cause. So that knocked everybody out, and they all went out drinking. No, I don't know. Those things are wonderful.
Just fascinating,
It's-
yeah.
The university in your own living
All in your
room.
hands.
In your hands, yes.
What's the answer?
The answer is that it has to be caused if it's intermittent. Just think of it logically.
I'm talking about.
Oh, in general?
No, what His Holiness in the book?
I think, can I say one thing? I think both science and the practice of Buddhism or religion maybe is an open-ended inquiry into what is true.
That's nice.
Well
Cause
said.
and effects condition.
That's a course catalog. Mark will teach.
It's true. Logic and fact. Yeah.
So, the whole reason why in our tradition we examine to see whether a particular interpretation stands up to logic is to determine whether it is true or not.
Science would be the consistent repeatability of something due to causes and effects.
But the scientific method is the same. It is
Yeah.
the scrutiny of something to see
Exactly.
whether it
Yeah.
stands up to.
Mm.
So, I don't know the history of science or religion to the extent that one should to really take an opinion, but I do think that we have been living in the last 50 years at a time when there really has developed far more harmony between these two than ever before, and
It's just in.
It's just
okay. So the ethics equals the eightfold path, says Priscilla Newcomb. So, in other words, the mindful way in which we lead our lives is an ethical way. Yes. But back to science and religion. So what I'm suggesting, and it's not something, I think that it's basically what His Holiness is saying, we are actually experiencing the development of harmony between these two things that has never really existed to this extent before. It's rather unique. I think we have an extraordinary, we are living the result of something extraordinary. While in recent past not many were aware of the impact of human behavior on the environment, today it is almost universally accepted that we need to be sensitive to the environmental impact of our actions, especially when it comes to economic development. Okay, and finally, while nationalism based on strong attachment to one's own country was a dominant force until quite late in the 20th century, today, thanks to our increasing interconnectedness owing to communications and mass migration, its appeal is greatly diminished. As a result, the oneness and the interdependence of humanity are increasingly taken for granted. These are some of the reasons for my optimism. So the development of a relationship between science and spirituality, the recognition of the oneness of humanity, the recognition of the interdependence of the members of humanity, the countries, the different groupings. And then he goes on, in addition, I have always been a believer in the power of the individual. And this is related to what you were saying, and I think it's really important. Throughout human history, many of the great developments that have helped change the course of humanity have emerged through the initiative of individuals. And each of these initiatives began with a vision and a belief in a new and better world. Whether it was Wilberforce's campaign to abolish the slave trade, Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent freedom movement in India, Martin Luther King Jr.'s civil rights movement, or my fellow Nobel Peace Prize laureate Jody Williams' campaign for the banning of anti-personnel landmines. In each case, the inspiration came from individuals. So in addition to this, it is likewise a collection of individuals who, in supporting each of these campaigns, have helped bring about lasting change. So the point is that it is actual individual people who have really created the changes that have that have affected the sort of path of humanity. But most importantly is the only thing that really determines whether I am a happy person or whether I'm well is the way in which I behave. So the individual, in addition to what His Holiness is saying here, I'm simply proposing that we consider the fact that the true change that we experience and that we bring about is the change that we make within ourselves. That's paramount within society. The responsibility that the individual, that I have in bringing about change, in bringing about my own change and my contribution to the change, the improvement of the whole of society. I think it's fundamental, and here one of the sort of elements of the sort of belief system of Buddhism, Hinduism, is the notion of karma, and the notion that my actions are what determine the situation I find myself in, the mental framework that I possess, the physical world that I inhabit, the way in which I'm treated by others. All of that is determined by my actions. So when His Holiness talks about the power of the individual, I think that we have to interpret that to really encompass this sort of this other meaning of individual responsibility and a recognition of our responsibility for the situation we're in right now. And we're all sitting around here in this room together, but each one of us has, though we are sharing this and we're going to share the food that we eat afterwards and the merriment that we experience, we each come to it totally differently, totally separately. And we come to it as a result of our past actions, actions of body, of speech, and of mind that reach fruition right here in the present. I think it's really important to assume responsibility for that, to recognize it, and to thereby determine that the contribution that I can make towards a better future is by how I behave now, given that it is my behavior that has brought about the present. It is my present behavior that will bring about the future. And behavior means the way I think, in particular, what motivates my actions. Now, I'm not sure that science would necessarily accept this notion. I'm not sure that the laws of karma can be can really be scrutinized or that they can be checked in a way that is objectively checkable. I think that in Buddhism we talk about these three levels of phenomena. There are the evident phenomena, there are the hidden phenomena, and there are the very hidden phenomena. And this notion of karma, of cause and effect, is within the very hidden category. And it's something that an enlightened being can actually see the sort of minute mechanics of, but that we can recognize only maybe the tendencies or the sort of general flow of the way in which, when I'm nice to people, people are nice to me, I'm happier, they are happier, and that I can identify. And based on that, I can actually be proactive and work towards being nice, and thereby having the people around me happy, and thereby being happier myself. So that's like an effective, proactive use of this, even though it is within this very hidden category. And so as we think about the role of the individual throughout society, throughout history, really, we ourselves, we may not be Martin Luther Kings or Mahatma Gandhis, but we each have our ability to contribute to the good of our world, or by the way in which we behave. So, since society itself is nothing but a collection of individuals, human beings just like you and me, it follows that if we want to change society, it is up to each one of us to make our contribution. I think that says it all. So, do you have any? Would someone like to say something? You.
Okay. Margaret Mead comes to mind. There's that quote attributed to her. Each person can make a huge difference, whatever. It's much more eloquent than that, but just the action of one person can make a huge difference. And I should pull up my phone and look for the much more eloquent version of that, but that's what it's saying right there. And for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I mean, look at, from tiny seeds, mighty oaks grow, whatever. whatever cliche I can come up with, but it's so apparent. And
I think of Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. Such a powerful motivation on a daily basis. Like you wake up, calibrating yourself, eliminating the afflictions so we can be our best and contribute. It starts with us.
And Mother Teresa, sorry. Better to do small things in a great way than to do great things. Something like that.
Huh.
So, members of my generation belong to the 20th century.
Friendly.
Sorry?
I asked if she met Mother Teresa. You met some of her followers, you had some interaction with them, didn't you?
I met her.
You met her? Ah, salud.
Was she impressive?
Very.
I see.
She was very small. She had these
an Albanian.
strong feet.
Strong feet.
So
Yeah,
that's
she
the
was-
impression you took away.
Yeah, she was grounded.
Grounded, yes, I see. Okay.
And she glowed.
I
She
see.
had just come out of the hospital, and I went with RINPOCHE to see her. And she was standing barefoot. And RINPOCHE was saying, "We've been praying for you." And she said, thank you. We must all pray for each other. Thank you." And she was glowing. She was just glowing.
How old was she?
In her 80s. It was the end of her life. It was a few months before she passed away.
Excuse me. And there's also a convent of hers in the West Village.
Really?
It's very impressive seeing her nuns doing the work that they do here. And I found that quote, if you want to hear it. Okay. "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has."
Very good.
Yeah. And
But when you talk
We need
about
that
a
today.
small group of individuals, here, what I'm trying to emphasize is that it's not a question of a group. I mean, yes, we can consider ourselves a group, but it's
One, yeah. When things in the world go amok, they generally straighten themselves out, but it's usually through the efforts of one person started. Right. And that snowballs.
but still all that we
It's one
can.
person.
Mm,
Yeah.
me,
Yeah. Right.
you,
God.
Grace. So, members of my generation belong to the 20th century, which has already gone past. During the century, we humans experimented with many kinds of things, including large-scale war. As a result of the terrible suffering this caused, we have, I feel, become a little more mature, a little wiser. In that century, we all achieved a great deal in terms of material progress, but in so doing, we created social inequity and environmental degradation, both of which we now have to deal with. It is now down to the youth of today to make a better world than the one which has been bequeathed to them. Much rests on their shoulders. So that's sort of, we have selfishly taken, and now it is for the next generation to work towards improving things. Given this fact, and also the truth that effective societal change can only come about through the efforts of individuals, a key part of our strategy for dealing with these problems must be the education of the next generation. This is one reason why, during my travels, I always try to reach out to young people and spend some time with them. My hope and wish is that one day formal education will pay attention to what I call education of the heart. Just as we take for granted the need to acquire proficiency in the basic academic subjects, I am hopeful that a time will come when we can take it for granted that children will learn, as part of their school curriculum, the indispensability of inner values such as love, compassion, justice, and forgiveness. I look forward to a day when children, as a result of integrating the principles of nonviolence and peaceful conflict resolution at school, will be more aware of their feelings and emotions and feel a greater sense of responsibility both towards themselves and towards the wider world. Wouldn't that be wonderful? To bring about this better world, therefore, let us all, old and young, not as members of this nation or that nation, nor as members of this faith or that faith, but simply as individual members of this great human family of 7 billion, strive together with vision, with courage, with optimism. This is my humble plea. Within the scale of the life of the cosmos, a human life is no more than a tiny blip. Each one of us is a visitor to this planet, a guest who has only a finite time to stay. What greater folly could there be than to spend this short time lonely, unhappy, and in conflict with our fellow visitors? Far better, surely, to use our short time in pursuing a meaningful life, enriched by a sense of connection with and service towards others. So far, for the 21st century, just over a decade has gone. The major part of it is yet to come. It is my hope that this will be a century of peace, a century of dialogue, a century when a more caring, responsible, and compassionate humanity will emerge. This is my prayer as well.
Wow.
So, I want to thank you all. It's been such a pleasure to spend this time going through this book, and you very patiently put up with my sort of slow, and it's been, for me, we were asked to go really discuss His Holiness's teachings on secular ethics. We were asked to go through this slowly, and we have done so. We have accomplished it, and it's been very, very fulfilling. It's been extraordinary. Thank you all.
Thank you, it's golden. Holy gold, or whatever Bible thing. Amazing. Darren, names?
So we've been asked to read the 3 jewels for Brian Wilson.
Sly Stone.
No, right, Slicer, we didn't want him.
We covered him.
So, we recite the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble 3 Jewels. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavat, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer of timer beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of Bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of Nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with doctors. His ayatanas are controlled. He is completely kept announced. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He is crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who abides in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the Bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are perfect virtues and graces of the Buddha Bhagavat. The Holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavad teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavad is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy, and it puts an end to the journey. As for the sound of the great Dhamma, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joining palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue. I prostrate to the Tathagata, pure who causes freedom from passion, virtuous liberating from lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. We can read the 8 verses on training the mind. With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings, who surpass even a wish granting view, I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings, and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others out of jealousy treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as light illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment. And a prayer for the swift return of Chungla Rinpoche. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in the drop, Sole refuge manifests in the form of the one wearing saffron robes. Guru Losam Tulam Dorji Cham. Please bear with us here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of the doctrine, accomplishing long ago the vast ways of aspirational prayers. Lord of speech of the victor of some teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you to strictly resist his end, to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by teachings and drawn by 7 seas, having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness. Please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full of the direct sage's teachings, and which fulfilling jewel, returning to the glory of Losam Tenpe. Magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahankala, Paramayana, and Srimati Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight grace.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Very good Buddha prayer.
And now.